Not yet.
I pledge allegiance
Those 2, 4, and 5, 6 people.
Debbie, ruining everything. All right, we're here for the budget hearing tonight. And Ms. Burns, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Antonello. So this is our annual budget hearing. It's a requirement as part of the budget process here. We are going to be videotaping. Thank you to our videographers up there. The hearing, it will be posted on the district website, as will the PowerPoint presentation. So thank you to those who have joined us here tonight. As we share the proposed district budget for the 2022-2023 school year. And we lost our
It's coming back on.
There we go. Okay. So the world has changed greatly since each of us has entered our chosen professions, and the skills necessary to navigate today's world are quite different than those that we perhaps had learned. So the question becomes, how do we prepare our students for life beyond high school? As we developed this budget, we centered our work around our mission statement and our students' needs for both the present and the future, needs that have been influenced by, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic. Our community supports and values public education, and we have made choices that ensure that we safeguard our schools and our programs for not only the upcoming school year, but for years to come. We have expanded our pre-K program and anticipate that over 80% of the West Islip High School class of 2036 will join us in September as pre-K students. Our incoming kindergartners are with us for 13 years, so we need to ensure that each child leaves our school system with the skills to successfully pursue his or her dreams. We know that there is much more to education than what happens in the classroom, and our choices reflect that. But research has shown that the basic skills, reading, writing, and mathematics, are still the best foundation for continued learning and growth, but they are only the first steps. Students now need skills such as coding, communications, creativity, and collaboration. As we develop this budget, we kept the future in mind, as we know that what we plan for this school year affects years far beyond 2022-23. So these are the projected average class sizes for the upcoming school year as of today. And as late as 2:55 this afternoon, these numbers changed from this morning. They are consistent across the district for the most part and reflect what we know to be best practice for kids. We will continue to monitor these numbers very closely throughout the late spring and summer, and we expect there will be adjustments based on the CPSE and CSE processes and typical enrollment changes over the next few months. So budget preparation is not an easy task, and over the last few months, the administrative team and the Board of Education have spent countless hours considering the district's and our students' needs, both short and long term, district building and department goals, and public feedback that is received not only at our budget workshops, but throughout the school year. We've been attentive to addressing the curricular and instructional needs within our classrooms, safety and wellness concerns that have surfaced, and the various maintenance issues within and across our facilities. In addition to maintaining our curricular and extracurricular programs, we've included a number of items in this proposed budget that will allow us to expand on what we do in the classrooms, libraries, labs, music rooms, athletic fields, and to continue to develop our technology initiative while supporting the social, emotional, and mental health of our students. This slide and the next summarize the key items that are funded in this budget. The budget supports the allocation of an additional full-time counselor at the Currently, one counselor is split among the 4 buildings. We propose the addition of a grounds maintenance worker, a clerical for the technology department, that's instructional technology, and a high school library aide. We plan to redesign the layout of the high school counseling suite to better serve the needs of the 21st century student and their families. Our mental health and wellness initiatives will continue, and the district will participate in targeted workshops and assemblies to support the ever-changing social emotional learning needs of our students. The Smartboard and Chromebook replenishment will continue next year, as well as the replacement of outdated teacher workstations. We plan to expand the use of huddle cameras next year. Huddle cameras record and live stream athletic events and provide parents with the opportunity to view their child's sporting events they might otherwise miss due to work or other obligations. Our grandparents love it. The cameras were very well received by the community and the student athletes and coaches during the pandemic, as they also helped to gather game film that can be used for a variety of reasons, including college recruitment. Additionally, this budget supports the replenishment of our band and musical and orchestra instruments. We will be renovating both middle school technology labs through the CRISA grant, and the new equipment and furniture for those labs will be funded through this annual budget. We will also make several vehicle purchases next year, including 2 small buses, a refrigerated service van for food service, a school safety sedan, a maintenance van, and a grounds van. So at this time, I'd like to introduce our Assistant Superintendent for Business, Mrs. Elisa Pilati, who will take you through the actual propositions that are on the ballot this year. Mrs. Pilati. Thank you, Mrs. Burns.
Good evening, everyone. So when everyone goes to vote on May 17th, on the ballot you will see 3 different propositions. The first is always for the school budget. Our budget that we are proposing for next year is $130,246,851. Our second proposition is for the use of the capital reserve in a not-to-exceed authorization amount of $2.9 million. And the third proposition is for the establishment of a second capital reserve. The community will also be able to vote on the election of 3 Board of Education trustees. So that second proposition is for the use of the capital reserve that currently exists. This capital reserve was approved by the community in May 2019. As you may recall, anytime a capital reserve is established or used, you have to go out to the community for a vote. So this proposition is for 6 different projects and a not-to-exceed authorization amount of $2.9 million. Next year, we are looking to install security window film on all of the first-level floors of all of our school buildings district-wide. At the high school in Udall, we are looking to renovate 12 tennis courts in total. At the high school, we are going to be extending that campus-style fencing that we recently put in near the library in Paul J. Blue down to Lions Path. At Beach and Udall Middle School, we will be renovating 6 different restrooms, 3 in each school. At Paul J. Blue, we will be looking to expand and create additional parking spaces. And at the high school, we will be doing a complete replacement of all of the building fire alarms. And again, this is a not-to-exceed authorization, so any money that is not spent is simply returned to the capital reserve. And one of the major benefits of the capital reserve is that it comes at no additional cost to the taxpayers. So this does not impact our budget, our current year, our future year's budget at all. This is our budget at a glance. We are increasing our budget by $2.7 million. The $130 million proposed budget does represent a 2.15% increase. I think it is worth mentioning, though, the very latest inflation rate that was released was about 8.54% recently. New York State actually requires us to take our budget, our expenditure budget, and break it down into 3 components: program, administrative, and capital. The program piece is always going to be the largest piece of the pie. As you can see here, that represents about 74% for us. This relates to and consists of all of our instructional related expenses. It consists of your teaching staff, the teaching assistants, your paraprofessionals, special education costs, any extracurricular costs, sports, all transportation costs. So all of those costs represent about 74% of our total expenditure budget. Then we have the administrative component. That's about $15 million and just under 12%. That represents all school board expenses, all of our legal fees, finance expenses, human resources, all of our auditing requirements and expenses, administrative expenses, district clerk offices, general insurance that we're required to carry, as well as the professional development of our staff and the supervision of all curriculum. So that again is about 11.54%, and the last component is capital. This represents the cost to maintain all of our facilities. It also represents any debt-related costs. So the district has gone out for bonds in the past. Whenever you go out for a bond, you have debt-related service costs that you pay on a yearly basis, and those costs are captured here in this component, which represents about 14.7% of the total expenditure budget. One of the very first things we do that we submit to New York State is our tax levy. The tax levy is calculated based off of a restricted formula that is provided to us by the Office of the State Comptroller. It's a multi-step formula, and we follow that to come up with our restricted tax levy, which for next year we are looking at a tax levy of $90,382,573. That represents an increase of 1.99% in the levy. It's also worth mentioning that this is the 11th year in a row that we have operated under the tax cap legislation, and the 11th year in a row that the district has went out at our allowable levy limit. We have never pierced the cap. Whenever a tax levy is set, homeowners are always interested to know how that would impact them personally. In order to determine the actual tax rate for next year, you actually need three numbers. You need the tax levy, which is what the school provides. It's the only number the school provides, which we know is $90 million for next year. But you also need the homestead percentages as well as the final assessment values. And those two numbers are provided by the town of Islip, and they do not arrive at our office until the fall of 2022. Therefore, we come up with an estimated increase in taxes for next year by using the current rates that are available to us, as well as our known projected tax levy for next year. So we come up with an estimated amount based on the average assessed home in West Islip. The average assessed home is valued at $45,000, and for the average assessed home, you are looking at an increase in taxes for the whole year for $176.85. That's about a 1.99% increase, and it represents about $14.74 per month. This is our budget formula all put together. As I mentioned, you start off with your restricted tax levy. We're looking at a 1.99% increase. You then have to consider any state aid the district is expected to receive next year. And again, if you read Newsday, if you've seen the news, a lot of districts have a huge influx of state aid coming their way, and that's because many districts were not fully funded in one of the formula-driven aids, which is foundation aid. The state committed to fully fund foundation aid over a 3-year span. This is going to be year 2. So those districts who are not fully funded, some of them are seeing tens of millions of dollars in state aid next year because of that. West Islip has always been fully funded in foundation aid, therefore we received the minimum increase in foundation aid. So in total, our state aid for next year is only going up 2.26%, which is less than $1 million. So when you add in your state aid, you also have to consider any other revenue that the district expects to earn in the following year. In our district, some ways we earn revenue are interest income, non-resident tuition. We also have rental buildings that we lease out to tenants, and that's income that's considered in that category as well. We are looking at a 7.7% increase in that category. Again, you have to next add in any appropriations from reserves. Our district is fully funded in our reserves, and we're lucky and we're fortunate that we can use reserves to help balance our budget. So here we're looking to use $500,000 next year. It is an increase of 25% from the prior year. We are looking to spend and appropriate from the reserves $250,000 from the workers' compensation reserve and $250,000 from the employee benefit accrued liability reserve. The workers' comp is pretty self-explanatory. That will be used to pay for workers' compensation costs. The employee benefit accrued liability reserve is used to pay for any time an employee separates from the district, whether it be retirement, termination, and they're entitled to some sort of payout, whether it's their convertibility, their terminal leave. So those reserves will be used to pay for those costs next year. And lastly, you have to add into your budget formula any appropriated fund balance. This is an amount that's used to essentially help offset the following year's budget. However, we recently had the Office of the State Comptroller in for an audit, and based on our historical results, we have never really had to tap into our appropriated fund balance. Therefore, the OSC recommended, which they have made this recommendation to several districts, that you start to gradually decrease this appropriated fund balance if you have never really had a need to use it, which is what we're doing. So we're taking it down by 15%. So when you add up all of those amounts, you arrive at your expenditure budget for the 22-23 school year of $130 million, which again represents a 2.15% increase. There are several budget communication items that we put forth for the community. The board holds budget workshops. We had 4 of them this year, which are all available on our district's website. Yesterday, actually, we sent out the informational budget postcards that are blue. Hopefully, you'll see them in the mail. Sometimes they get stuck in the junk mail. We also have the budget newsletter, which was also mailed out yesterday. Both of those will also be available on our district's website. And we are required by law to put out budget statements, which we refer to as our budget books. In the main office of every school building, the public library, these budget books are available for review. All of that information is also on our district's website currently. Those books include our line-by-line expenditure budget, so you can see the comparison year over year, the dollar change as well as the percent change. You can also see the breakdown of our 3-part components, the 3-month program capital administrative. You can also see the property tax report card that was submitted to the Office of the State Comptroller, our salary disclosure notice that's required by law, our school report card, the latest one that's available, our fiscal accountability supplement, as well as the local government exemption impact report that comes from the town of Islip. And most importantly, on May 17th at the high school gymnasium is our budget vote from 7 a.m. until 9 p.m. Any questions?
Okay, Ms. Pilati, thank you so much. First, let me really thank you and the administrative team for all of your hard work. This is an amazing budget that provides us with everything our students and our community needs. I just want to make a comment and not really a question regarding the second fund that we're trying to establish and its relation to the first fund as well as the pie that you showed us. You referred to having the school district each year pay back the bond. That increases, that cost. Part of our budget has to go to pay those interest costs. And I think it's important to note and for people to understand that by establishing these 2 capital reserve funds, it will lessen the opportunity or the need for the school district to go out and borrow that money in the future. So in the past, while we've had to essentially mortgage that budget for later on to fix things that need to be fixed in the school district, with the establishment of these 2 funds, we will no longer need to do that. And so I just want to make that connection for people who may be viewing this at home, how important it is to have those and how good it is for the district. And thank you for bringing that to us.
Any questions? Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. That concludes budget presentation. No questions? Okay. Thanks for coming.